Make sure all my phones are muted. Should be on. Good morning, everyone. It's 11 o'clock. It's actually a couple minutes after, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We thought we'd give everybody a few minutes to get situated. Thank you for joining us here today. This is the audit rule hearing for the 2024 audit rule rulemaking. I'm going to kick this off here in a second and formally open the hearing, but first I'd like to welcome State Auditor Joseph Maestas and give him a chance to make some introductory remarks.
Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning. Thank you, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Joe Maestas, State Auditor. Welcome to our audit rule hearing. Before we begin, I wanted to introduce some of the folks here at the front with me. To my right is our Governmental Accountability Office Director, David Craig. And to my left is Mr. Ben. He works for our General Counsel Office. Before we get started, I wanted to just make a few announcements. You know, I've said this several times in terms of the audit rule. In all my experience, even at the federal level, I've never seen an audit rule revisited every year. And I think it's because of the nature of the ever-changing standards. But we're moving towards a rule that can stand for several years. And I believe this next iteration of the audit rule changes will complete that. And so, you know, we may not be here doing this every year if we have it our way. Another, I think, new aspect of the audit rule is we've already drafted a guide which can really expand on the guidance in terms of how to interpret and implement the audit rule. And so we have some changes in mind for the audit rule, and we hope it's a vast improvement. Another thing that we're going to do after this audit rule is we're going to start conducting statewide training on the audit rule. My team tells me it's time to get out of the office. I've spent like the first year, you know, in the office looking over the landscape and assessing and making appropriate changes. And we have made a lot of positive changes to the office to make it operate better. But you all know that the accounting industry nationally and certainly here in New Mexico is not in the best shape. We're in the middle of a crisis. Number of IPAs is diminishing. The number of accounting majors is diminishing. A lot of the baby boomer accountants are going to be retiring here. So there's actually a cliff that we're facing. And so are we prepared as a state? And so we're not here to talk about addressing the accounting industry in the crisis, but I just wanted to give you all a heads up that, you know, my office, we are working on a real robust legislative agenda and part of that agenda is going to be to try and address the trickle in the pipeline of accounting majors and potential CPAs. So you'll be hearing more about that. The last thing I wanted to do is I wanted to take on an issue kind of head on, and that is the proposed change to the auditor rotation rule. This is not something that my office just decided to do. As you all know, I have about 16 years of experience serving on a governing body in which every year we would, you know, review and approve audit contracts. I've seen the dynamic between finance staff and auditors, and I believe there really is a threat, a familiarity bias threat. And that is part of my motivation is because of my experience in seeing this firsthand. I've talked to some of you out there and you all tell me that the profit margin improves in successive years in a multi-year audit contract. And I understand that, I get that. Now, I think the miscue that my office made is in the initial version of the audit rule changes, we didn't have a transition plan to transition from an 8-year to a 6-year auditor rotation rule. And that is the reason why I decided to cancel the initial audit rule training to allow us to incorporate that transition. That way, if you're in your second 4-year procurement, it's not going to disrupt that. You can continue with that engagement. And the other issue, the other elephant in the room is that there's going to be some public entities that can't find an IPA because of this audit rule rotation change. And we have already approved some exceptions to the auditor rotation rule. And if there are some small, particularly small public entities that can't find an IPA, we will definitely consider an exception. So I don't mean this to be punitive in any way. And as I understand, I think under the Keller administration, the auditor rotation was actually 6 years. So maybe you guys are saying, dang it, these change administrations, it's like a darn pendulum. But I think me and my team really believe in trying to avoid and mitigate any familiarity bias. So I thought I'd address that, up front. And with that, it's just a pleasure to be here and see all of you. And I want to say hello to everybody online. Thank you for participating. We value your feedback in this audit rule process. So anyway, appreciate your time and attention, especially those of you that are here in person. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Auditor. And just in case I realized I did not introduce myself, I'm Christopher Hall. I'm the Assistant General Counsel for the Office of the State Auditor. I think I've probably corresponded with most of you, or if I haven't met you in person, so nice to see you all. So now I'm going to call this hearing to a start. Can you all hear me okay? All right, is that better? All right. So now I'm going to go into the procedures and purpose of the hearing. The purpose of the hearing is basically to give everyone their due process rights to provide notice, comment on proposed rulemakings that affect them. The procedures are going to be that we're going to read a brief summary of the proposed changes, a brief summary of the comments that have been provided. If you have not read or aren't familiar with the comments that have already been provided, they are all posted on the OSA website. There is no need to reiterate written comments at the oral hearing or the public hearing. All comments, written and oral, must be and will be considered by the office before finalizing the rule amendment and the rule change. And then they'll all be actually written, and there'll be a written response to all the comments in the final rule as it's submitted to the State Record Center and Archives. So the way this is going to work is we're going to start with people who are here first. And then we're going to go to the people who are online and allow anyone who wants to make a public comment. I think the agenda says 2 minutes. I think we'll give you 3 minutes. There's not a huge crowd. So we'll provide 3 minutes for everyone to make their public comment. For the people in the room, Benjamin over here will be running the mic and keeping the time. So, and we'll just go in order of people raising their hand, essentially. And then if you're online, you can raise your hand virtually through the Zoom function, and Hope with the Society will call on you and let you know when it's your turn to start. So with that said, let me go on and start talking about the summary of the changes and the summary of the previously submitted comments. So the summary of the changes, and to be clear, all of this is online. It's all on our website. And it's all part of the notice of proposed rulemaking that was published in the New Mexico Register. And then we provided it to the society to send out to their list. We sent it out to our list. And then I sent it to the New Mexico Municipal League and New Mexico counties to share to their memberships. So, and in that NOPR, we call it a NOPR, the Notice of Proposed Rulemaking, there is a section at the end that talks about that gives a general overview of the changes. But literally in section 2.2.2, there we clarify the scope of the rule. In section 2.2.3, we specify the statutory authority for the rule. It used to just say the entire rule. There is a specific section, or it used to say the entire Audit Act was the statutory authority. There is actually a specific section of the Audit Act that gives us the authority to promulgate this rule. 2.2.6, we clarified the objective of the rule. 2.2.7, we cleaned up the definition section. There were a lot of acronyms that were used once in the rule. So there's no need to use an acronym if it's only used once. There were some acronyms that weren't used at all in the rule that were relics of previous rulemakings. So those were deleted. In 2.2.8, we clarified certain GAGAS CPE requirements. We amended the auditor rotation rule to 6 years. We clarified certain subcontractor requirements, including those for technical review contracts. In 2.2.9, 2.2.2.9, we amended the process for audit report corrections. We amended the process for required status reports for past due audit reports. And we made non-substantive style corrections. In 2.2.2.10, we clarified the reporting requirements for component units of component units, added the NM opioid allocation agreement, which is statewide to state compliance audit requirements. We amended the reporting requirements for criminal violations, basically just to clarify things. And some of that is removing language that repeats statutory language. The State Rules Act says that you're not supposed to repeat the statutory language in the rule. And then we amended language around SOC audits and amended language around para and ERB employer guides. In 2.2.2.12, we made non-substantive changes to delete an unnecessary acronym. 2.2.2.14, we provided for SOC audit qualifications, deleted other extraneous language. In 2.2.2.15, we amended requirements for special audits and examinations, removed language requiring state auditor approval of agency-initiated special audits or examinations. And we added language requiring state auditor notification of results of agency-initiated special audits or examinations. And in 2.2.16, we provided for later filing time for weekend or holiday filing for local public body reporting. Essentially, we're going to move to 11:59 instead of 5 o'clock for filing deadlines. And now I'm going to move on to a brief summary of the comments that were provided. Lee County provided comment opposing the reduction in the auditor rotation rule, the change in the auditor rotation rule. McKinley County provided comment requesting that the audit rotation rule be left at 8. And then asked if the change is going to be made to start with FY25. I believe we've already put in our amended NOPR. Manning Accounting and Consulting Services also provided comments opposing the shortening of the audit rotation rule. Michael Vigil, a retired CPA, provided comment also opposing the auditor rotation rule. The Education Trust Board of New Mexico provided comment opposing the auditor rotation rule. The State Investment Council provided a comment also opposing the auditor rotation rule shortening, as did the 7th Judicial District Attorney's Office. Some of these just talk about the difficulty with small agencies in rural counties acquiring audit services. Southwest Accounting Solutions. They said they understood why the OSA might make this change, but also said that it would create additional strain on resources. PKM, Trujillo, Kubiak, Melton provided extensive comment on which also opposing the change on the auditor rotation rule. The Taxation Revenue Department provided brief written comment about the use of the term combined reporting system, and that is no longer in use. So we're going to take that into account and probably strike that in the final version of the rule. Clifton Larson Allen provided comment noticing some of the definitions that were being deleted weren't deleted thereafter. We addressed that in the amended notice of proposed rulemaking and fixed those errors. That was a transcribing error, my apologies. They also provided comment opposing the audit rotation rule change and asked for elaboration on compliance expectations with regard to the New Mexico opioid allocation agreement. ERB and PARA both provided comment about making a change to the employer guides, which we then actually made in the amended proposed rule. DFA, Department of Finance and Administration, provided comment opposing the changes to the auditor rotation rule, as well as proposing changes to report due dates, additional notice requirements to the report due dates, and also asked to be added as an agency responsible for engaging in SOC 2 compliance audits. Hinkle Landers provided comment opposing the audit rotation rule reduction. And the 5th District Judicial District Attorney's Office also provided comment opposing the shortening of the auditor rotation rule. And Doña Ana County provided comment on the burdens that would be incurred by shortening the auditor rotation rule. In addition to the employer guides, PARA also provided comment on the auditor rotation rule. And the Administrative Office of the Courts provided comment on the shortening of the auditor rotation rule. And then the Administrative Office of the District Attorneys also provided comments, noticing the different difficulties in finding audits and requesting reconsideration of the shortening of the auditor rotation rule. Carr, Riggs, and Ingram also provided comment opposing the shortening of the auditor rotation rule and also asking for additional clarification as to the compliance expectations with regards to the New Mexico opioid allocation agreement. And Des Moines Municipal Schools provided a comment opposing the shortening of the auditor rotation rule. And Hobbs, the city of Hobbs also provided comment requesting reconsideration of the shortening of the auditor rotation rule. So that is the summary of the previously submitted comments. Now we're going to get into the meat of today's action, which is the actual public comments. So if I had a gavel, I would, but since I don't, I'll metaphorically gavel this hearing open. And now it's your turn. So if there's anyone here in the room who would like to make public comment, please raise your hand and we'll run the mic to you. And then you can, and again, if you're here or online, this is being recorded in lieu of a transcription. So please state your name, the agency or firm or your affiliation, and then you've got 3 minutes to talk.
Got it. Thank you. Very good. Good morning. Can you hear me? Good morning, everyone. Good morning, sir. Auditor. I'm here to provide my input. I would have done it also online. Pardon?
Who are you, sir?
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
My name is Oscar Rodriguez. I'm the Chief Financial Officer for the New Mexico Finance Authority. I've been there almost 8 years. Prior to that, I was the Finance Director for the City of Santa Fe. And before that, I was the town manager in Taos. And so I have a lot of experience with rotation of auditors. And I can tell you, it's certainly convenient to not have to do an RFP, go through the whole process to select a new auditor, et cetera. But I should think a lot of my colleagues here would agree that, but there's a lot of things in our business that, while they are convenient, are probably not safe to do, or at least not the right thing to do. And I would say that the rotation as proposed for 6 years in my opinion, is right on the mark. I was at NMFA when it changed, went from 6 years to 7 years. I thought that was just a little odd, having experience with financial control elsewhere in the state. I was also concerned about the auditors becoming too familiar, too comfortable, if you will, with the material and the systems that they're auditing. But I was also concerned just about the public impression or the public a view of a system of a set of books that's been audited by the same people for 8 years, et cetera. I think at some point it rightfully draws attention to, are they really finding everything that needs to have, that needs to be found out. It also, I think it also helps us establish, if you will, a more a clearer expectations about the rotation. I mean, it's going to happen, and sometimes the idea that you were going to turn in a good audit, in order to to continue the contract, et cetera. At least that conversation, it helps us avoid that. So I very much support the change in rotation to 6 years. And Mr. Maestas, I came here really just to talk about that. It's a significant thing for me. But when I heard you introduce the idea of a more enduring audit rule, I want to applaud that as well. My God, shouldn't we have an audit rule that everybody can put away, and when you need it, call on it, as opposed to go online, search which is the most current version, et cetera, to make sure that you're making the right interpretations. And so I applaud that as well. So real clearly, speaking for myself, based on 15, 16 years of financial management in New Mexico, I support very much the rotation being brought back to 6. I was comfortable with that. Of course, I enjoyed not having to do the extra RFP for the 8 years, but I'm very comfortable with the 6 years.
Anyone else here at the society?
Hello, my name is Brent Ship. I'm the Chief Financial Officer of the New Mexico State Investment Council. I know Oscar very well, working with him on an ongoing basis because of the relationship our entities have together. But I did want to take the contrary position that he took. I'm very much opposed to going out to 8 years. Based upon research that I've done, I'm not aware of any study that would indicate shorting that requirement from 8 to 6 has any really true benefit. You mentioned a few minutes ago just the pressure that the accounting industry is under. This auditor rotation requirement change potentially has negative ramifications. And I would just challenge everybody, go out there and look and see what really supports this change. I would also raise the question, neighboring states, Texas, Colorado, Arizona, what do they do? I think they're closer to 10 years. So I think 8 is a pretty good compromise. 6, I think, is absolutely, without a doubt in my mind, going in the wrong direction. And just so you know my background, I've been a CPA in New Mexico going on 40 years. If I haven't been auditing entities, I've been audited by CPA firms. I've kept my license active all these years. I'm very acquainted with auditors in this room, Moss Adams, CLA. I think they do fine jobs. And I would just very much oppose this change at this point.
Seeing no other comment.
because you give me a mic and that can be a little dangerous. Thank you for your time and for coming here today. My name is Laura Beltran Schmitz. I'm with Clifton Larson Allen, CLA. Also pleased to be here in the State Society, a proud member of the board as well, and working here with the staff. Appreciate the time and the comments in the opening remarks, Auditor, regarding the rotation specifically and the concerns over the familiarity bias. And that is a great point. And it's important for us to also acknowledge, we as IPAs do take into consideration and are required to document all threats to independence. In addition to familiarity bias, there are additional threats that we are to document and then address as part of our internal quality review system. So this is something that is front of mind and we keep in mind when we're performing our audit procedures and going through our quality review process. And we appreciate that, acknowledging the exemptions that could be made if there are potentially smaller governments that are unable to get a auditor to submit for their audit. We do know even this year, with the rules still being 8 years, there were at least 2 that we're aware of that had to undergo an exemption from your office, and it's appreciated. And they're actually in the metropolitan area. So I think, this is a larger issue than potentially just those in rural communities. And to the point of, again, the familiarity bias, an entity can terminate their relationship with an IPA at any point in the contract. So just because you bid for 4 years doesn't mean you automatically have that contract for 4 years, because we do have to renew our contracts through your office every year. So if there is that concern, the entity can choose to terminate that relationship, or I believe, the state auditor's office even has the opportunity to reject those contracts if there is that concern that the familiarity bias is approached or even exceeded without thorough documentation of a quality review process. So thank you for your time.
I want to take a second to ask for any other speakers in the room, but then also I just got a message that the office is receiving calls that the Zoom link isn't working, or perhaps people may have the wrong Zoom link. Obviously some people are on Zoom, so it must be working for some people. I'm gonna hope, is there any way you could reach out, or Ben, can you and Hope reach out to Andrea and try to clarify this and provide see if there's some way to fix this? Thank you. And with that, I'm sorry for the interruption, but are there any other people here at the society who'd like to make? Great. We'll get you the mic. No.
Good morning, State Auditor, your team. We appreciate you all taking time to schedule this meeting and reschedule it. I just had a quick comment. My name is Daniel Trujillo, Managing Partner with TKM IPA. Been an IPA for 17 years. And the one thing that kind of stuck out to me going through the changes that Mr. Hall was going through was that there was an overwhelming amount of comments against the 8-year down to the 6-year rotation rule from reputable big agencies, small agencies, everything in between, IPAs. And so although I see where your experience might lead you to say, oh, the familiarity threat is real, and I'm sure in some instances it is, I would just encourage you to heed those comments. I think the fact that there's so many agencies, large and small, IPAs who are making them, I think there's probably something there that we should really look at and make sure that we're really considering before making a change to go down to the 6 years. So I appreciate your time, and that's just one thing that stuck out at me very, very much so during the comments. Thanks.
Ms. Zamora.
Hello, I'm Natalie Zamora with the Education Trust Board of New Mexico. And Ms. Cordova, our Executive Director, wanted me to say this on her behalf. She noted one of the concerns is that this is an industry norm and doesn't appear to be a need for a rotation rule as audit standards already sufficiently address independence. And that's all.
Thank you. Anybody else here in the room? All right, Hope, do you want to see who wants to make a comment online? And hopefully we'll get some more people joining us here in a minute that are not. I would make that announcement right now for anybody, but anybody who hears this is already going to be on the Zoom call, but it's being put on our website. So, thank you. And where is it again going to be? Great, thank you, Ben. All right, Hope, go ahead, please.
We couldn't hear what he said, but I'm not sure since we're already on Zoom.
So basically, we just posted the Zoom link on the front page of our website. If there's anyone out there who is on the Zoom call, who's getting calls from people who aren't able to access it, please advise them that our IT director is posting the link on our homepage, basically where it says 2024 audit rulemaking.
And it is the same link for everybody, so it should be working. I would recommend trying to shut down maybe and start back up and try and join it again. So Byron Manning, you have your hand raised. You may go ahead and state your comment. You will have 3 minutes. Thank you. Byron, you can go ahead and start with your comment. He may have raised his hand on accident. Okay, Byron, we'll come back to you. I'm going to go to the next person. Audrey Jaramillo, you may unmute yourself and state your comment for 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Auditor Maestas, and those of you, you can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. I'm Audrey Jaramillo, Managing Partner of JAG, Jaramillo Accounting Group. And other affiliations and experience I've had is in governance as an elected official for my local school board for 8 years. And then on my local town council and commission for 6 years approximately. And so I see this from all different angles, but definitely wanted to state that we are against auditor rotation. We see that the procurement should really line up with the 4 and 4 years of professional services. We see the generational shift that everyone sees with turnover and problems happening, and sometimes the auditor is the only consistent variable in the equation. IPAs are really struggling with unqualified clients. For example, I don't think you would have your administrative assistant engineer the building you're in, but we are seeing it all the time with people that are definitely unqualified in the business and finance positions. So that's making it very difficult. And you add rotation into that, and I think it's a storm. I think of it also in a doctor analogy. I mean, you appreciate your doctor that you get to know, maybe a family doctor, they know you, they can best diagnose you, they know your symptoms, they know your history. You can always get another opinion if that's necessary. But I think it's even offensive to think that a doctor would deny his training in professional duties and ethics to somehow not give someone news that they don't want to hear. Would we say just because an engineer or attorney or doctor served a client for 6 years that they wouldn't do a good job? That they would tell the client or not tell the client something they need to hear? For most of us, we can't even imagine that. So it could just be, Mayor, and I want to be respectful, or auditor, sorry, that you had some experiences there locally where you were. But I do think it can be addressed in other ways and still trust local control. But some alternatives that I wanted to offer, the 89 school districts and all the charters have audit committees. These audit committees make recommendations to the boards of who the auditor should be. So that's already a check and balance on the governance if an auditor does need to change. You even have community members on those audit committees. So that could be implemented on a broader basis. I think most of us think it would be a compromise to change the on-site manager, have that type of a requirement, or even change the partner in charge of the engagement. That would be a good compromise, so to speak. But if there is an unethical auditor or someone who is actually just not following the independent standards and having a familiarity bias, which I'm not even sure what that exactly looks like in the situation that you had. I hope you share it with us so that we could help problem solve. But I think it needs to be addressed with that IPA in the desk reviews that OSA does on the IPA, or with the governmental entity itself with governance and alerting governance that you're concerned about a bias, or hearing something in a 1266 letter, or hearing something on the hotline about fraud, or that an auditor isn't reporting something. But most of all of us, we are professionals. We hold to our
Andrea.
standards. So it's something.
Andrea, I apologize. I hate to cut you off, but your 3 minutes is up.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
If anyone else online would like to make a comment, please raise your hand so I may call on you. Byron, I see your hand is raised. You may go ahead and unmute. And you have 3 minutes to say your comment. Byron, if you're unable to speak, you can go ahead and put your comment in the chat. Anyone online who would like to make a comment, please raise your hand so I may call on you. Byron, we'll check on you again. I'm going to call on Chip Lowe. You may unmute and state your comment. You have 3 minutes. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, my name's Chip Lowe. I'm the finance director down here in Lee County. And Mr. Mays, I'm not going to discuss, I made my comments about the auditor rotation, and I respect your position on that. I just wanted to say that you said earlier that you were planning on going around the state and doing training on the audit rule. And I would just like to invite you down to Lee County. We'd be more than happy to host you and hopefully give you a good stay. That's all the comment I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Byron, I went ahead and asked on Zoom for you to unmute. Please let me know if that works. If it does not work, I recommend jumping off really quickly and jumping right back on.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Byron, you have 3 minutes to state your comment, starting now.
Okay, first of all, I was just checking after you had Again, it's Byron Manning from Manning Accounting and Consulting Services, one of the small firms. After you had re-released the audit rule, I had sent in additional comments on it. I didn't see that they were ever posted, so I was just wanting to make sure you did receive those.
I believe we read those out earlier, actually.
Well, the ones that are posted were the ones that we posted originally back in March when you first did it. And then when you made the changes to it, we sent another one commenting on it. And that we never saw posted in the comment section. So I just checking to see if you'd got it. We kind of gave you statistics on the drops of small firms in the 10 years.
Copy that, Mr. Manning. I will find it and I will reach out to you if we did not receive it or find out why it hasn't been posted. So thank you.
Okay, because I sent it to the one who had sent me the email saying I didn't need to send it again if I didn't want to. So I responded to his email and attached those comments to it when we did it. We, as pointed out, do oppose it. We do feel that as the years have been reduced, and this will be the fourth change in 8 years to the audit rotation rule, that the small firms have kind of got squeezed out with it. At the very least, coming out as late as it did, how you could maintain year 7 or 8 was too late for many entities to do. That if you do stay at 6 after all the comments against it, that we do believe you should revise that, that entities that were in year 6 or 7 in the current year could maintain through their 8. Had this been released in February, they would have been able to do that. But releasing it at the end of April, many of those entities no longer had that option as that process was completed. So that would be our only comment, that if you're going to stay with the 6, that you change your grandfathering in to allow those entities who in the current year would be on 6 or 7 could maintain the same auditor to the end of 8 to allow for a more smooth transition. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manning, and I apologize. I did receive them and I didn't realize I had received them. I'm having them posted on the website right now.
Thank you. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the next person. Natalie Cordova, you may go ahead and state your comment for 3 minutes, starting now.
Thank you. Good morning, State Auditor and Audit team. I appreciate this opportunity. I was fortunate enough to log in just in time to hear Natalie Zamora iterate some comments. I appreciate that. One more I thought of, and then Audrey beat me to it in mentioning it. I do believe the auditor's office already has sufficient regulation or control already written in this authority, given the ability to perform a review and otherwise ultimately decide an agency and IPA are not able to work together. So I would, I suppose, maybe redirect back to that rule and emphasize I don't believe the rotation rule, number one, is necessary. Should it be found to be such, I do highly recommend keeping with the 8 years, as it is very helpful for the RFP process. It is a enormous undertaking for entities to resources and effort to properly adhere to the RFP process, as well as firms responding if there is even a response for that agency. So I appreciate this opportunity. Just wanted to reiterate, I believe there are already sufficient rules within the audit rule and that this one is not necessary. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other online comments? Please raise your hand and I will call on you. Again, any comments online, please raise your hand and I will call on you.
Thanks. So why don't we give it a couple more minutes? I don't know if that was an echo from me or if somebody else just tried to say something.
A second here.
I don't see any more hand raised on Zoom to make any comments.
Copy that. I will also note that the rulemaking is supposed to close tomorrow. The record for the rulemaking is supposed to close tomorrow. I will double check the register publication dates. There is not a huge rush to get this published since this doesn't really affect this current auditor or audit rotation or audit cycle, I should say. So I will propose holding the comment period open for an extra week to allow anyone who could not join the Zoom link today. And we'll send out a notice to that effect through the society and through our lists to let anyone who was unable to join the meeting today because of technical difficulties to have an opportunity to provide written comment. And with that, unless there are any other comments, I will hereby close this hearing and turn the podium back over to Auditor Maestas for some closing remarks.
Thanks, Christopher. Christopher has been running point on this process. You know, it's not easy. It's kind of even more boring than making sausage sometimes, but Christopher Hall did a great job in kind of overseeing this whole process. I wanted to thank all of you here in person and those of you online for giving me your feedback, particularly on the auditor rotation rule. I hear you, I see you. So the next step for me and for my team is, you know, we're going to look over all the comments. I'll be honest, you know, when we did revise the proposed audit rule changes with a realistic transition plan, I thought the comments would be a little more moderate, but it sounds like even with the transition plan, some of you are not real happy about it. So we're going to consider that as well when we get back to the office and decide what final changes we're going to make. Also, I really, you know, again, I was talking to Laura about this. I really feel like we need to have more of a frequent dialogue, not just to talk about some of the things my office is considering with the audit rule, but broader issues, you know, addressing the crisis in our accounting industry, looking at other challenges, promoting a singular audit, a consolidated audit of all state agencies. We're one of the only states, I think, in the country that doesn't have a singular audit. So there's a lot of issues that my office is going to advocate for and champion, but, you know, being in the game for so long, I know that you don't want to go to the legislature without some support, some credible support. And I think I'm appealing to all of you and those of you online and your firms that that we establish some kind of a forum to have a more frequent dialogue to talk about these, particularly talking about some of the legislative issues that we're going to be bringing forward that no doubt will affect the industry. So I'm appealing to all of you personally to see if there's a way we can accomplish that and have that dialogue. The last thing I want to say is, as you know, we initiated a major program to assist small local public bodies. Over the past decade or so, they have fallen deeper and deeper into non-compliance. Some local public bodies have been about 10 years in arrears in their financial certifications. So we have 2 appropriations. We've set up a legitimate program within the office to assist small local public bodies. We're going to be issuing kind of an on-call RFP to make it more attractive to some of the bigger firms, where we would basically, you know, hopefully make a selection and issue appropriate task order. So look for additional procurement opportunities out of my office to assist small local public bodies. So with that, anything else, Christopher, you want me to?
I do have one other thing if you're finished, sir.
Yeah, I'm done.
I did just receive an email from Michael Steininger with Department of Finance Administration, who said he was able to join this Zoom right as I closed the comment period. So I think it's okay if we reopen it for a minute. Michael, are you online? Would you like to make a comment? Mr. Steininger, do you want to make a comment? Oh, okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Steininger. Well, with that, I just want to, believe me, I want to make sure that everybody has their chance to be heard. That's both a duty, but also something that we take very seriously. So thank you, everyone, for your time today. Thank you especially to the society for hosting us as always and helping us to get the word out when we do these things. There will be trainings and other, like the auditor said, we want to get him out on the road. We need to get him out of our hair for a little bit. So expect more word to come back on future trainings, and thank you all for your time and your consideration.